Someone gives you 10 compliments in a day. By night, you barely remember any of them. But one person makes a single small negative comment and it plays in your head for weeks, sometimes years. If you've ever wondered why your brain clings to pain but lets go of praise so easily, you're not broken and you're not overly sensitive. There's an actual scientific explanation for this. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your mind works this way and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Part 1, what negativity bias actually is. This phenomenon is called negativity bias, and it's one of the most well-documented patterns in psychology. It means your brain gives more weight, more attention, and more emotional energy to negative experiences than to positive ones, even when they're equal in size or importance. Researchers studying this have found something remarkable. It takes roughly 5 positive interactions to emotionally balance. Just one negative interaction, 5 to 1. That's how unevenly your brain treats good and bad information. So when your boss gives you a performance review full of praise, with just one small criticism buried in it, guess which sentence you're still replaying at 11 p.m. that night? It's never the praise. It's almost always the one negative line. This isn't just a feeling, it's measurable. Psychologists have run studies where people are shown a mix of positive, negative, and neutral images while their brain activity is monitored. Across nearly every study, the negative images produce a stronger, faster, and longer-lasting neural response than the positive ones. Your brain isn't choosing to dwell on the bad. It's biologically wired to react to it more intensely from the very first millisecond. Part 2, why evolution built us this way. To understand why this happens, we have to go back thousands of years, long before phones, before social media, before offices and performance reviews. Back then, your ancestors lived in a world full of constant physical danger, predators, starvation, disease, conflict with rival tribes. In that kind of environment, missing a threat could get you killed instantly. But missing a reward, say, walking past a piece of fruit you didn't notice was, at worst, a mild inconvenience. You'd survive to find food another day. Because of this imbalance and consequences, evolution favored brains. That paid extra attention to anything, negative or threatening. The humans who were highly alert to danger were the ones who survived long, enough to reproduce and pass on their genes. Over hundreds of thousands of years. This created a brain that is, by default, tuned to scan for problems, threats, and negativity far more intensely than it scans for good things. This is sometimes called the smoke detector. Principle, it's better for your internal alarm system to have 100 false alarms than to miss one real fire. Your brain would rather overreact to a harmless comment than risk, underreacting to a genuine threat. The problem is you're not living in that world anymore. Your brain today is still running that same ancient survival software, except the threats you encounter now are almost never physical. They're emotional, a rude comment, a cold reply, an awkward silence in a conversation, a bad review online. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, doesn't know the difference between a lion and a harsh comment from a stranger on the internet. It reacts to both with the same intensity. Part 3, the neuroscience of why criticism sticks. Let's get specific about what happens inside your brain in the exact moment you receive criticism versus praise. When someone insults you or criticizes you, your amygdala activates almost instantly, often before your conscious mind has even fully processed the words. This triggers a small stress response, a release of cortisol and adrenaline, a slight increase in heart rate, a tightening in your chest or stomach. Your brain treats this moment as significant enough to burn it in, meaning it strengthens the neural connections related to that memory, making it easier to recall later. Biologically, this is your brain trying to protect you, flagging the experience as dangerous. Remember this so you can avoid it next time. Compliments and positive experiences don't trigger this same alarm system. There's no urgency, no threat, so your brain processes them with much less intensity. The memory isn't reinforced the same way. It's like the difference between writing something in permanent marker versus writing it in pencil and then never tracing over it again. Both exist for a moment, but only one is built to last. This is also connected to something called the peak end rule, combined with negativity bias, meaning the way you remember an event is disproportionately shaped by its most intense moment. If a conversation had 19 kind moments and one harsh one, the harsh moment often becomes the peak your memory clings to, distorting your overall impression of the entire interaction. RT4, real world examples. Let's look at how this plays out in everyday situations. Because once you start noticing it, you'll see it everywhere. Imagine you post something online, a photo, an opinion, a piece of creative work you're proud of. You get 98 positive comments and 2 negative ones. Which comments do you think about while trying to fall asleep that night? It's almost never the 98. It's the 2 negative ones, word for word, sometimes for days afterward. Or think about a workplace scenario. You deliver a project. Your manager says, "This is excellent work overall. I just think this one section could be tightened up a bit." Most people walk away from that conversation focused entirely on the tightened up comment, completely forgetting the word excellent was even said. Or think about relationships. A partner says 10 kind, supportive things throughout a week, and then during one stressful moment says something sharp or thoughtless. That one sharp comment can outweigh an entire week of kindness in how the relationship feels afterward. Not because the kindness didn't matter, but because your brain is built to weigh the negative far more heavily. This pattern shows up in nearly every part of life: reviews, relationships, childhood memories, self-image, even how entire news cycles are designed. Because negative headlines statistically get more attention and clicks than positive ones. Negativity bias isn't just personal, it shapes entire industries and cultures. Part 5, how this shapes your long-term self-image. Negativity bias doesn't just affect how you remember a single insult. It shapes your entire self-image over years, sometimes decades. If you grew up hearing more criticism than encouragement, even if it wasn't constant or severe, your brain naturally built a stronger mental pathway towards self-doubt, simply because that pathway was used more often. Neural pathways function similarly. To trails in a forest, the more a particular thought pattern is triggered, the more worn and easy that trail becomes to walk down again in the future. Meanwhile, compliments and encouragement, if they were less frequent or less emphasized growing up, never got the same chance to build an equally strong pathway. This is part of why some people can receive constant praise as adults from partners, from coworkers, from friends, and still feel like it doesn't fully land, like some part of them doesn't believe it. It's not that they don't want to believe it, it's that the negative pathway is simply more worn, more familiar, and easier for their brain to default back to. This also explains a phenomenon many high achievers experience where external success doesn't seem to quite any internal sense of not being good enough. The achievements are real, but they're being filtered through a negativity biased system that was shaped long before those achievements existed. Part 6. Can you actually change this? Here's the part that matters most, because none of this means you're permanently stuck reliving every insult for rest of your life. Negativity bias is a pattern, not a life sentence, and there are specific, research-backed ways to work with it rather than against it. The first method is something psychologists call savoring, win. Something good happens, a compliment, a small win, a kind moment. Most people accept it and mentally move on within a second or two. Savoring means deliberately pausing for 10 to 20 seconds and really sitting with the positive feeling before letting it pass. This isn't about forcing fake positivity. It's about giving the positive experience enough time to actually register in your memory system, essentially forcing it to compete for the same burned-in status that negative experiences get automatically. The second method is recognizing the size gap between an event and your reaction to it. A single rude comment from a stranger is objectively a tiny and forgettable moment in the overall scale of your life. But your amygdala will try to convince you it's a major event, worth analyzing for days. Simply noticing this gap in the moment, thinking, this feeling is bigger than the actual event deserves, creates a small but powerful mental distance that weakens the grip of the memory. The third method involves deliberately balancing your input. since it takes roughly 5 positive experiences to offset one negative one. Some psychologists recommend actively tracking or writing down small positive moments each day, not to force happiness, but to consciously feed your brain the ratio it needs to counteract its natural bias over weeks and months. This can genuinely begin to shift how quickly your mind reaches for negative memories by default. So the next time an insult replays in your head far longer than it logically should, remember this: it isn't a flaw in your character, and it isn't a sign that you're overly sensitive or weak. It's a flaw in the design of a brain that was built for a much older, far more dangerous world than the one you're living in now. You're not broken for remembering the bad more vividly than the good. You're simply running very old survival software inside a very new, very different world. And now that you understand exactly how it works, you have the ability to start working with it instead of being controlled by it. Which one do you experience the most? Do certain criticisms from years ago still replay in your head? Or have you noticed yourself forgetting compliments almost instantly? Let me know in the comments below. And if this video helped you finally understand a pattern in yourself you never quite had words for, make sure to subscribe, because there's a lot more psychology like this coming your way.